Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another episode of Tactical Harmony. And today's guest is someone whom I affectionately refer to as my Earth Angel. She has been in my world now for 7 years. And to be able to share her with all of you today is an honor and a privilege. So without further ado, allow me to introduce Sara Mitteer. Sara Mitteer is the founder of Modern Alchemy Wellness and Reiki of San Diego. With over a decade of experience in energy medicine, hypnotherapy, and spiritual healing, her companies have helped over 3,000 people with their physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. She leads a San Diego-based wellness center and luxury spiritual speakeasy in San Diego, California, where she offers trainings, retreats, and immersive healing experiences that are designed to lead people to deep inner peace and intimacy with God. Sara, welcome to the Tactical Harmony Show.
Well, thank you. It's such a pleasure to connect in this way.
It feels like such a unique experience because you were with me in my world when I was still an NCIS special agent, when Tactical Harmony wasn't even thought of. She wasn't even born. And you've seen my evolution and ascension over the years. And now you were a guest on my podcast. And I'm just really so grateful and holding so much space for that right now.
It's so special to have seen you blossom. And a lot of times when people first come to see me, I'll get little glimpses of their potential, like where they're destined to go. And then to just see, to be able to be alongside you in your journey, to see you really fulfilling your potential and your purpose here is just such an honor.
I love it. Okay. So before we dive into what Reiki or energy medicine is, could you give us an overview of your personal or professional journey and what led you to opening your business?
So I started having no inclination that this was going to be the direction that I took in life. I actually started wanting to be a neurosurgeon and was pre-med, double majoring in psychology and biology. I always knew I wanted to help people. I was fascinated with the mind. I was fascinated with neuroscience. And so that's just what made the most sense was neurosurgery. There were some pretty key aspects of the job that did not align with me, a major one being passing out at the sight of blood. Not sure that would have been a fruitful path. I was like, I can do this. I can overcome this mind over matter. But I was about halfway through that program. And then in hindsight, I can see so clearly how it was the hand of God. I did not have any sort of meaningful relationship with God at the time. So I just thought these kind of weird coincidences or random happenstances were occurring in my life. But I was mid-program. I was doing like 6 or 7 different part-time jobs. I was in the manager for a hypnotherapy company. I was a bartender. I was a dance instructor. I was a yoga instructor. Kind of lost in my life, and I didn't really know which path to take. I was mentoring underneath one of the lead neurosurgeons in San Diego. And I wanted to interview him on just his overall life and his career, what his process was like. Because to me, he'd reached that level, like that level of success. And that's something that I was striving for. And so I really respected his opinions. And one of the questions that I asked him was if you could do it all over again, if you could start from the beginning and go through every experience that you went through, now being at the top of your field in San Diego, would you? And he said no. And that it shocked me because I really expected him to say like, absolutely, it's been worth every single step, all of the debt, all of the work. But he shared that he has missed so many life events, so many of his kids' football games or birthday parties, because especially to be a neurosurgeon, you're on call. It's a certain lifestyle, and that really becomes your life. So that rocked me. And so it started to seed some doubt. I started to think about lifestyle, but then also, fast forward like a couple of weeks later, he got into a motorcycle accident and died on impact. And that just rocked my world because a few weeks ago, he was saying how he wished he could have been there for his family more. And then now that was the end, of his life. And so that just kind of put the nail in the coffin. And I realized, okay, this path is not for me. I pretty quickly went in and shifted my entire program. I dropped biology major. I ended up continuing with psychology and received my degree in psychology. But that left me a little bit more lost because psychology is a bit of a unpaved path, I guess you could say. I didn't know which direction I wanted to take it in. And so that's when I found myself going to psychics. And that was really unusual for me because I grew up Catholic, but fell pretty hard from my faith in my late teens, just not being able to reconcile a lot of the spiritual questions that I think a lot of people have around like evil and tragedy and having trauma happen in your life. And so I didn't yet understand that there was a difference between religion and spirituality. And so I thought it was either religion or atheist. And so I chose being an atheist and I completely disconnected from anything spiritual. So even to go to a psychic was very out of my comfort zone, being in this whole Western scientific world. But I thought I had nothing to lose. I was like, oh, let's just see. Let's go for fun and see what they have to say. I went to several and I lost a lot of money, unfortunately, of people just saying things that I think they were just attaching to what they thought I wanted to hear, what made the most sense. When I was listing all the different jobs that I was in, I spoke the most passionately about yoga, and all of them would give me that feedback that I think it's yoga. And I finally made it into this bookstore. I wasn't even searching for anything, but overheard a conversation about a psychic. I went up to her very angry and went like, how can you tell the difference between a real psychic and a fake one who's just telling you what you want to hear? And she's like, I think you will just feel it. And I had no connection to my intuition at the time. So I was like, can I pay you for like 5 minutes? I don't want to invest more than that in this. And those 5 minutes, she read my life to me like it was my autobiography. And I kept extending the time, ended up spending a whole hour with her. And what really captured my attention was when I listed all my jobs, that was my big question of what do you see me doing? And she's like, none of it. I don't see you go pursuing any of those paths. Keep dance because that feels like a creative outlet for you. But I actually see you laying your hands on people and they're healing. And at the time, I don't even think this was so long ago. Reiki wasn't very big. So I'm not sure she even knew what Reiki was. But she did talk about crystals. She's like, you're laying crystals on them and they're healing. And that really stood out to me because I've had a lifelong hobby of collecting crystals from being so young. I was a family joke that I had back pain because of how many crystals I would carry in my backpack to school every day. Had no idea they had healing properties. But that it really captured my attention. And then literally within a week, I started getting all of these emails for Reiki trainings that I had never signed up for. So I always say that I didn't find Reiki. It found me. It literally felt like it landed in my lap. And I went into these trainings having no spiritual belief, thinking it was absolutely ridiculous that I was going to lay my hands on people and they were going to heal. But in doing that, I ended up having my own spiritual awakening, and it birthed, my entire belief and my understanding of something bigger than this world and the supernatural abilities that are out there. It was such a big gateway into, my own spiritual expansion. So from there, one thing just led to another, and it literally just kind of fell into place. Started as my own personal private practice. I went from those 6 part-time jobs to quitting everything, going full-time into Reiki within a year. And that was pretty rapid. And so as much as it was a lot of work on my end, I give so much credit to God. I think there was incredible alignment there because there's no way something could build that quickly from 0 to 100 in just a year. And that's not just, that was like full-time, seeing 30 clients a week. I had a wait list, and then from there I felt the need. I'm like, okay, there's something special here. And so I started to grow. And so now I have a team of practitioners, a wellness center, and it's just boomed.
Wow. What a journey. And your wellness center and spiritual speakeasy is so divine and beautiful and energetically sound. And I can say that because I have been there and it is amazing. Couple of questions for you based on what you said. You described having a spiritual awakening. And I have heard of so many people having this. And I'm curious in your experience, if you're open to sharing, was that an event for you? Was it a moment? Was it multiple days? What did that look like for you? How did you embody that?
That is a great question. I've had many spiritual awakenings, and I don't think that I'm done. I think there will be forever more layers of it. Um, the most significant, I have had two most significant spiritual awakenings, and one was through seeing that there's something bigger than me happening that is not within my capacity or control. So I thought it was ridiculous that I would lay my hands on people and they would heal. I thought it was placebo effect, or there's some other explanation, surely, for why people are healing. I could see all of the science and the studies that were coming out about it, but it still wasn't enough for me. But I had this insane calling for it that I couldn't explain. And so I was like, I need to do this. And I don't know why. And we're going to see how it goes. And so I started with friends and then became friends of friends. And just through literally laying my hands on people, and I'm watching them have profound experiences, not only on the table, but after, like the healing that's transpiring, I couldn't explain. And then as I started to open up even more, I I could start to tune into what was flowing through me, and I could feel the presence of something bigger happening. It wasn't my energy, it wasn't coming from me. And then as my energy field started opening up more, I started to feel the actual presence in the room, like the presence of, like, a felt tangible presence of other beings or other energies in the space. So I'd say one spiritual awakening was slow and progressive over time, and then I had a second really significant spiritual awakening where I was in a Reiki session receiving myself. And this was a moment that changed the entire trajectory of my life forever. Um, it was on a Sunday that felt significant also because of what happened in that session. But it's a holy day, and I was receiving a session, and this was coming off of like 6 months of going after soul remembrance. And I don't even know where that intention came from somewhere else, but I was pursuing, like, I want to actually feel and know who I am and where I come from and like where home actually is. There's something much bigger, but I don't want to know it just cerebrally. I want to actually like feel it in my body and know it to be true on a deeper level. And so in this session, Jesus came to me, and I, at that time, wouldn't say I didn't believe in Jesus, but I didn't have a relationship with Jesus. Was kind of neutral about it, but coming out of a lot of, I say religious trauma lightly, but just wounding of, not really resonating with religion. I had kind of a perception of Jesus, and so a disconnect there. So this experience of Jesus coming to me in this session, it literally was like knowing unlocked within me immediately. And I was just sobbing, and not out of sadness, but like pure unconditional love, a level of love that I have never felt before. And immediately it was just this knowing of like, Jesus is real and Jesus is there and God is real and God is there. And it's just like, it landed finally inside of my body. And then that changed the entire trajectory of not only my personal life, but my professional life and what I help people to connect within themselves now in their own spirituality.
Wow. Oh, I have chills. I could feel your energy and almost reliving it. And I love how you discussed, yeah, I've had a couple of spiritual awakenings. I've had more than one. And you know what? I'm not done yet. And I love that because for anyone who is listening or watching us right now, you're not done yet. Do not cap yourself. There are so many awakenings and moments and experiences that you have ahead of you. And I think that is so beautiful. And of course, it's divine. And I have one question for you before I go to what is Reiki, what is energy medicine. I promise I will get to that. But you mentioned you were disconnected with your intuition. You didn't really know what it was yet at that point in your journey. And you also kind of referred to, like, hey, I have this inner calling. I have this thing going on and I'm being pulled and I am moving. Can you basically answer the question? What is intuition to you? What when people say intuition or I'm going to trust my gut, what does that mean to you?
Mm. To me, it means following an inner guidance system that goes beyond logic. Because our mind can analyze a situation, pros and cons, or what makes the most sense in our life. But our gut feeling, our intuition is that sixth sense inside of us that sometimes will even go contrary to logic, but something that just feels right or feels in alignment or feels expansive. We all have it. We all have an inner compass. And I think sometimes our noise of our cerebral mind can cloud it or just get so jumbled with other people's opinions or ideas of what we think we should be doing. But the more that we can clear that noise and trust that intuition, you'll find that it never leads you astray.
I, like many hard chargers, high performers, go getters, I have a lot of noise. I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm constantly in my head. I am thinking about what I have to do, the next thing I have to do, something I have to do tomorrow or the next day, and it never ends. And Sarah is absolutely right that when you clear your channel, when you connect with your heart, when you connect with your gut, sometimes it will be very contrary to what might be logical or what your brain says or what could make financial sense. And picking on myself, and Sarah, of course, had a front row seat to this. When I left NCIS, it did not make logical or financial sense, not even a little bit. But where it did make sense, where I did have that inner knowing and the conviction in my bones, it made sense. It made all the sense in the world, and I moved. And we would not be here right now had I not trusted it, tuned in, and listened to it. So that is beautiful. Okay, Sarah, can you please define what is Reiki?
In a million and two different ways.
Yeah, no pressure, no pressure. No pressure.
Yeah, there's two different angles. There's a very scientific angle to Reiki, which I think is incredible that we now have so much science that proves it's working. Even on cells in a petri dish, we understand that it speeds up the rate of healing and repair by at least 40%. And there is no room for placebo effect there. But what science can't explain is why it's working. Yeah, we understand, okay, yes, it's working, but we don't understand why it's working. And that's where we bridge into more of the supernatural and the metaphysical. And that's the space that I just love to live in. To me, I think my definition of Reiki has changed a million and two times because my understanding of it's so multidimensional. And I think every practitioner is so different. Every person who's receiving is so different. And so the way that it expresses, I guess you could say, to each person is so unique to them. So right now, I'll speak to this season in my career. Reiki to me is God's presence, like very short, sweet, and simple. It's a kanji word. It's defined as universal life force energy, which I like to think of as like the juice inside of a battery. It's the juice inside of a human. It's the energetic juice that keeps us operating physically, mentally, emotionally, etc. And so through our life, our energy can become depleted, very much like, supercomputer. And we need to take care of that if our life force is not strong from whether it's, traumas we've experienced or stress or overwhelm or overstimulation of our environment or certain environments or people or jobs that drain, literally like suck our life force out of us. So by reinforcing or strengthening, restoring our life force, then things just start to change and operate again. That would be more like the superficial kind of layer of Reiki of, okay, we're just restoring life force energy. And yes, a lot of healing happens there, but I like to transcend that and go beyond just the relaxation benefits of Reiki and use it as a medium for God to actually like lay his hands on people. And when I had that spiritual awakening with Jesus, my sessions like blasted out of the water in a way that I didn't even know was possible. Even my clients were giving that feedback. They had no idea the experience that I had had, but they started saying like, that was different. What was that? That was really intense. And so I don't even know if we can really call it Reiki anymore at this point, but I think it's within the same realm under the same umbrella. But to me, it's I am acting as a medium or conduit for God's life force, God's energy, God's presence, God's supernatural capacity to reach people. And there's such a wide range of ways that like you can't put God into a box, you know? So how God shows up for people is so unique. It can be an instantaneous healing, like a miraculous moment. More often than not, they're very complex, more miracles that happen that slowly over time, where it's shifting awareness or it's releasing belief systems or it's bringing things to a deeper level of consciousness so we can work with it. But it's been really incredible to see just how much is possible with supernatural presence. And that is just like my joy of it, is just to be a part of like God's miracles.
The smile on her face, again, for the people that are listening, not watching, she is absolutely radiant. And I could not agree more. And you have this way with words, Sarah. It's so eloquent. And when I try to repeat, kind of the things that you say, I don't do a good enough job. So this is amazing. I love it. And I will say, in my own personal experience, I have never felt closer to God and Jesus than before Sarah, and then there was post to Sarah. So you really did help me and have that hand in not only the energy healing and, hands on the body and the healing and the removing of things and the movement of things, as it were, but being so spiritual and so spiritually aligned. And I didn't even know I was disconnected. I don't even know how I found you. I think that you found me like Reiki found you. When I was stationed in San Diego, when people ask me, like, you do Reiki, what is that? How did you even get into it? And I have to really think about it. I just think it landed because it needed to, and God knew that. So that is amazing. And when you talk about the science and the spirituality, that is my passion. Where those two intersect, I could geek out and talk about it forever because I'm fascinated with it. And I think there's so much overlap with meditation. And I feel very close to God and my divine soul and spirit when I am meditating and when I'm doing Reiki. And we do a lot of things called coherence healings, and it is energy. You're moving energy and you're healing. And there are scientific studies and published peer reviewed articles that are out there that detail this with what Sarah was explaining with the petri dish. And it is blowing scientists' minds. I mean, they are resistant because it doesn't make sense, but they can't refute what's in front of them, which are the results. So, anyways, that we could go on and on about that. But I'd love to hear your answer on this, Sarah. For those that might label Reiki as woo woo or something that, oh, I don't know what that is, I don't trust it. What would you say to that person? Or perhaps what are maybe some misconceptions that you hear about what Reiki is or what energy medicine is?
I've been accused many times of selling snake oil.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna use the word witchery or sorcery, but I mean, I say that jokingly, but yeah, if you could shed some light on that, I
Yeah. I say a little in a little bit of a spicy way. I'm like, I wouldn't be as successful as I am now if I was selling snake oil.
love it.
And I often say to people, I'm like, don't knock it until you try it. And I find that a lot of people come to Reiki if they've heard about it or been inspired by other people. That's really common. Or when they're at their wits' end and they've tried everything else and now they're like, okay, I will sit on a crystal if it's going to make me heal or make me feel better. I will do whatever you say. And then that's like their breakthrough moment, where they get to actually see, oh, there's a whole nother realm of healing and a whole nother way to heal. Some common misconceptions. I would say that's the biggest one, is the snake oil, that people just think it's placebo effect and that it's not actually doing anything. And I will say it's challenging because there's no regulation in the industry. And so anybody could potentially, even if you've not gone to a training, someone can claim to be a Reiki practitioner. And that also has created such a wide range of different types of trainings out there. We have like our weekend warriors, where you've just gone through like a weekend workshop. And, I'm not sure that I would feel comfortable going to a practitioner who's, only done 8 hours of Reiki. I've seen, all levels combined into a 1-day workshop. And Reiki itself is a very simple healing modality, but it has so much capacity to be more than that. And that's where I find that we bridge into the realm of more energy medicine, where we actually go beyond the relaxation benefits and use Reiki very therapeutically. And I do think in some capacity you can do harm, if you're not clear in your own intention and energy. And so I find that people will make a judgment on Reiki as a whole based off of maybe one or two experiences they've had. And there is a whole world of other types of practitioners and approaches out there. So I say don't knock it till you try it, and also shop around, like really do your research. Don't choose just anyone, be intentional, and find someone who actually has a lot of experience and background. And that also feels right. Intuition really leads us to the right person at the right time. And even an incredible practitioner is not incredible for everyone. So finding the person that you just click with is really important.
One size does not fit all. So, for the high performers out there, and we have a lot listening to our Tactical Harmony show, how does Reiki benefit a high performer?
Alignment. 100% alignment. So what's wild is when I used to be a dancer and I was starting to get into Reiki, even my balance in the dance room changed. So my energy was coming back into balance, and that affected my physical body as well. So a sense of alignment, our sense of grounding, our connection to our intuition, I think it's so easy to burn out, and especially as a high performer, to get so cerebral about the steps that we're taking. And it can feel like an uphill battle. I've operated both ways in my career. I've operated the self-will way, and then I've operated the God-willed way. And they could be parallel paths and end at the same destination, but one is going to be way more exhausting than the other. So being in alignment with divine will, and that means the right timing, waiting for the right doors to open at the right time, not walking through the wrong doors, making sure that you're in alignment with your purpose and your mission, so that you don't end up at a place in your life where all of a sudden you wonder how you got there, or you have a midlife crisis and it's, none of it's worth it anymore. I have so many clients that come to me at that point in their life where they're like, Sarah, I have everything. Like, I have the money, I have the car, I have the family. Like, I have everything on paper that I feel like a person should have to feel happy and fulfilled. But why don't I feel happy and fulfilled? Why do I just feel burnt out? And I mean, there could be a lot of answers to that question, but the most common themes that I see is they're doing it in their own strength, not in partnership with a power greater than you, where things just click and flow and fall into place, where it doesn't feel like you're muscling uphill. But then also, that feeling of fulfillment is an internal thing. And we will always seek more if we're not fulfilling our actual life purpose. That, I think, is by divine design, that we're given this compass inside of us, that like square peg, square hole. There is only one shape that's going to fit that and allow us to feel fulfilled in life, and that is your life purpose. And our life purpose is multidimensional, changes throughout our life, but that also is the further reason to be so attuned to your energy, and to be walking on the spiritual path, and not just box yourself into one sense of purpose. But there's only one thing that will bring that sense of fulfillment and completion and wholeness within. And if you're off track from that, then it just leads to a feeling misalignment or burnout. And I think high achievers can really probably feel that and relate to that. I've been there many times.
Yeah, me too. She's laughing because that's why I went to her, and I didn't know it at the time, but I really just wanna take a quick moment and double tap that because having that inner discord and misalignment, and that's what it is. You may not know it, but that's what it is the result of not being spiritually aligned and connected with God. And I know, again, for a lot of the high achievers, high performers, go getters, you want to attack problems, you want to crush them, any obstacle on your path, no problem. I'm going to remove it, too easy, and then on to the next thing. And then I'm not saying there's not success in that, and that's not a good skill to harness and build. But if you were doing it at your own expense and you are not fulfilled, you do not feel peace and joy and happiness and bliss, there is something wrong. That is what the FBI calls a clue, friends. And I had that. And it was my own personal journey of understanding that. And you know what? Chapters close and then you have a new chapter. And seasons are called seasons for a reason. And the impermanence of something is to be embraced and loved, and clinging to the controls and the outcomes is slowing you down. And as Sarah so eloquently put, there is the self will way, which I did for the majority of my life. And then there's the God way. And the God way is that flow and its ease, and synchronicities start to pop up and opportunities out of nowhere just drop on your lap. And it is so beautiful and reinforcing, validating to see and witness. And it's wonderful. So, Sarah, you give so much to others with your healing and your energy work and your presence and friendship. How does Sarah take care of Sarah? What is something that you do to help yourself or prevent burnout?
I have this has been like the pain of my my career, because when you love something so much, it doesn't feel like work. And then also when you just get into the flow of things, at least for me, it's been hard to slow myself down. And so a huge piece of finding balance in life has been for me understanding that I'm in partnership with a power higher than me, and I can afford to take breaks. I can afford to sleep. Even when that's an act of faith to me now, that when I rest, I know God is working. So having a well-rounded life has been so significant for me. Having hobbies like that, oh my gosh, if you feel like you're lacking vitality in life, get a hobby and fall in love with it and do something that's just for fun, that's not related to anything within your work life. Even having just different groups of friends, so that because it's so easy to make like colleagues or friends for me in the spiritual industry, and then all of your conversations are still wrapped up in that world. And so to have so many different groups of friends where I can genuinely get out of that world and take a break from it has been really important. For me, slow mornings. I really need slow mornings with, like, my morning ritual is now 2 hours where it's my quiet time with God, where I meditate, I pray, I journal, I have my matcha latte. I have a whole ritual of just getting myself grounded and connected to the day. And that has been really significant. And then, I think the other most substantial one is sleep, like really prioritizing sleep hygiene, going to bed at the same times, waking up at the same time, getting the most luxurious sheets and power base for my bed. It makes a difference. We spend like, what is it? I think I read that we spend the equivalent of 26 years. The average person spends 26 years sleeping. And when that clicked, I started investing into my bed a lot more.
I love it. I love it. Oh gosh, yeah, that's true. That is really true. Wasn't until a few years ago I invested in my organic mattress and these crazy thread sheets or whatever it is, and it makes a difference. The little things are the big things. And I just want to quote you and keep me honest here, Sarah. You said, "When I rest, it is an act of faith. God is at work." Mic drop. That is
Amen.
so beautiful. And I just had that lesson actually last quarter, right before the new year. I was in a car accident And it stopped me. It rattled my nervous system, as one could expect. But it forced me to slow the F down. And when I did, things didn't slow down in my world and in my business. Opportunities were dropping on my lap for leadership coaching and a podcast network. And one of my books, or my only book, got into a bookstore. I did nothing. I lifted no fingers. I was resting and regulating my nervous system, and boom, all of these things came. God was at work, and He was immediately showing me, rest, things are going to keep going. Slow down to speed up. All of the seeds that you have planted, all of the inspired action, all of the moves that you have made, you are now enjoying the fruit of that labor, so to speak. So, again, I'm sharing my own personal journey because I want people to know that this stuff is real, it is present. I have experienced it over and over and over again. And as Sara said, we're not done. You are not capped. We're still going. So, I have just a couple more questions for you. One is, what advice would you give to young Sara? What advice would you give her?
Ooh, that's a good one. Failure doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means that you're doing something you've never done before.
You're doing something that you've never done before. Failure is not the end. It is not fatal. I love that.
Yeah, I've had a lot of moments over my career, and I think it's a given that you're in life in general, regardless of if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, you're going to meet a lot of failures. And if you look at it as a failure, then there's, at least for me, there's so much self-judgment or criticism that can come up. And the moment that I recognize that I'm judging myself for not doing something well that I have literally never done before, that doesn't make sense at all. So it's not failure. Like the failure or making mistakes, that's not a sign that I've done something bad or wrong or that there's something wrong with me. It's that I'm literally trying something that I've never done before. So it's going to be clunky sometimes. I'm going to make mistakes. And I've held such a fear of failure in my life. And that's had to be a huge thing that I overcame because I could see how it was capping me from putting myself out there. I was so afraid of also being misunderstood. And so the way that I would filter myself or my message or the opportunities that I would try to go after, and I would wait until I felt ready for something. And I've learned now over the last decade that if I wait until I'm ready, I've already outgrown that step. I need to be reaching for more beyond that.
Oh, wow. There's so much to say about that. We're going to have you back on the show because there's so many nuggets there. But yes, embodying a beginner's mindset is a beautiful force. And I share the same mentality as you. I didn't want to fail. And I did filter myself. I think I did it partly consciously and partly unconsciously, especially when, for me, 15 years in law enforcement and then switching to something completely different, I was just filtering myself because I thought I had to do that. And you do not have to filter yourself. And having that beginner's mindset, of course, you're going to make mistakes and it'll be a bit clunky. So that is so beautifully said, Sara. I love that. And I call failure one of my favorite F words because it means that you're going to learn, you're going to get feedback, and then you can grow and you can get better and you can get stronger and you can move on to the next level. So it truly is something to embrace. Last question for you. If our audience hears nothing else but this one clip, what do you want to leave them with as far as a message with regards to mindset or performance or self-leadership? What would you want them to hear?
anything is possible with God. Anything is possible. And no matter how many times you meet failure or resistance or closed doors, if you've been given a vision, if you've been given this desire for something in your heart, trust it and pursue it.
I love that. Well, Sarah, thank you for being here. We could go for hours, and y'all, we have talked for multiple hours before. She knows this, I know this, so I feel like I had to confess that and get that off of my heart and chest. But for those who are interested in learning more about you or Reiki or energy medicine, where can they find you?
They can find me through either. So I have two companies. I have Reiki of San Diego and Modern Alchemy Wellness. So they're um, still connected at the hip, but two different kind of approaches to healing. One is more the spiritual speakeasy, the luxurious kind of experience with retreats and mentorship and private sound baths. And so either company you can go through, but if you go to reikiofsandiego.com or modernalchemywellness.com, there's some contact forms that you can reach out that way. And you can also book an intake call. I mean, clearly I love to talk about this stuff. And so I've been known to have very lengthy intake calls because I just love to share all of this wisdom and incredible capacity with people. So I'd love to connect with anyone who's feeling the call.
I love it. Oh, thank you. And I will put all of those websites and how you can reach her in the show notes of this episode. So do not worry. From my heart to your heart, Sarah, thank you so very much for being an amazing guest on our Tactical Harmony podcast. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, such an honor. Thank you so much for having me.